I, 36F, have a 2.5-year-old son. He is energetic and curious, like every child is supposed to be. Meltdowns are age-appropriate, but he usually doesn't do that unless he misses sleep, gets sick or something like that. I make sure to let him release his energy in playgrounds etc. every day so he wouldn't climb furnitures. Our parenting style is similar to that British show called Super Nanny. By that I mean, for example, if you don't eat your vegetables, you won't get any desserts. No matter how much you cry, it won't change that. Or 19:30 is the sleep time after our nighttime routine. Unless there is an extreme case, 99% of time he will be in his bed, trying not to be in bed to have more fun. We do a little dance where he comes back to me, and I put him in his bed again and again. Rules are the rules. My mother-in-law, 58F, lives far away from us and invited us to her home so she can see her grandson face to face instead of everyday FaceTiming. Her home is filled with knickknacks etc. I mean, it is not ideal to have my toddler live there for a week, but with our parenting style, if we say no, it means no, so we thought it would be manageable with my 24/7 supervision. What we didn't calculate was my Mills character. She is not a recovering people pleaser. She is a proud people pleaser. She thinks she is like Mother Teresa, but it is actually one of my husband's traumas that he had to act extra aggressive to people to protect his mother from the people using her. She started giving my son chocolate cake behind my back, because he refused to eat his proper meal and I was like he would eat when he is hungry. Apparently, she couldn't imagine a toddler being left hungry by his mother. And since he is refusing the meal, he has to eat something, right? Whenever my son has meltdowns for the things that I wouldn't let him do, she saves him from his despot mom and does the thing with him. Because she couldn't bear watching him cry like it is the end of the world. Thanks to her week-long actions, now my son thinks my mother-in-law overrides my rules. If he cries enough he can get what he wants. So now, he doesn't stop crying for a long time, since eventually his angel of a grandma will save him. Today I woke up with flu, and my mother-in-law volunteered to babysit him. After a few hours, she came to my room asking for me to pay for her kitchen cabinets. Apparently he was banging a ladle on the cabinet doors and made a lot of dents on the paint. I was like, where were you when it happened? She was right there, she wouldn't left him alone of course. Why didn't you take the ladle from his hands? Well, he didn't let her. After the meaningless back and forth with similar questions and I already had a headache from my sinus. I just went back to sleep saying no I won't pay, and it seems like you need to discipline your grandson and be the bad guy for the first time. Now she is crying in her room so, comment 1. NTA. Your son didn't let his grandma take the ladle back? Assuming your mother-in-law has perfectly functional hands, she should have easily been able to take a ladle from a toddler. Normally, I would say that parents are responsible for anything their child breaks, but it sounds like grandma didn't want to discipline your son under any circumstances but has no reservations about making it your problem. And if your mother-in-law were better about enforcing rules and boundaries in the first place, your son probably wouldn't have been able to get a hold of the ladle and use it to hit the kitchen cabinets hard enough to cause noticeable cosmetic damage. Sadly, it sounds like these kinds of problems will persist unless you set hard ground rules with your mother-in-law. It'll take a while to get your son to stop associating his grandma with laxity in the rules, and he'll keep pitting the two of you against each other. Comment 2. NTA. Why should you pay for the damage caused by your son when your mother-in-law, who volunteered to babysit him, was supposed to be watching him? If she doesn't want to discipline the child, then she shouldn't volunteer to watch him. Let me tell you a true story about myself. My parents left me alone with my grandmother on their date night, and I started chewing on a cord that was plugged into an electrical outlet. My grandmother, like your mother-in-law, didn't want to make me cry, so she just let me keep chewing on it until I eventually broke through and got electrocuted, burning a giant hole in the side of my mouth that left a scar that remains over 50 years later. Refusing to discipline a child is not an act of love, it's an act of laziness. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, 32M, for 2 years and been together for a total of 7 years. I'm very close with his family, especially his parents and brother, but not so much my sister-in-law. She's super lovely, but she tends to keep everybody at arm's length, not just me. She has a 18-year-old from a previous relationship and has been in her current relationship for over 15 years. The 18-year-old is an absolute brat. She gives attitude to the entire family, including her mom, saying all the basic bratty things an 18-year-old girl can say. But she can also take it pretty far and it makes people uncomfortable, yet it seems like the mom doesn't say anything. Some examples: she'd complain about food in front of the host/people who made the food, complain about gifts given to her in front of the gifter, talk about how she'd have more fun at home than hanging out with us, make very racy jokes, belittle her stepfather in front of everybody. Very recently, the entire family, minus the parents, were gaming together and having a casual conversation about vacations as we did. The girl then said to her stepdad, "If you just earned more money for the family, we'd be able to go on more vacations." The mom just laughed it off and the stepdad didn't say anything, but I was kind of surprised by the blatant rudeness. The mom currently is a stay-at-home and my brother-in-law is the only one that works. They live in a great detached, single-family home, go on 1 or 2 vacations a year, and honestly are able to afford everything they need and then some. A little later I had a moment alone with my niece and I told her that it was rude to say something like that, especially to someone who does work very hard to earn what he does. I then asked why she felt like he should earn more money as a way to keep the conversation more casual and not as accusatory. She simply said he should be doing more and then left the room. Like quite literally said this and rushed out. Later that night her mom texted me telling me that it was unacceptable that I questioned her daughter like that. That I had no place and that I was overstepping my boundaries and I need to apologize to both of them. It's been 2 days and I haven't responded because honestly I don't think I overstepped my boundaries. I feel like the mother should be parenting and while maybe this would be acceptable if my niece was 10, I think that being 18 she should know how to be polite, even if it's people she doesn't like. Comment 1. Absolute NTA. Your niece is a terribly ungrateful, spoilt brat and her mother is equally at fault as it is obvious that she was never bothered correcting her daughter ever, growing up. Both of them sound like nightmares to be around, sucks to be the stepdad. I'm curious as to how the rest of the family never pointed this out and how your niece manages/will manage with that attitude in the real world, without her mama enabling her shitty behavior unless she puts up a facade or starts working on herself. OP comment. My husband and I talk about this quite often actually. We chalk it up to the fact that his parents, my in-laws, just want peace within the family and probably figure that it's easier this way than to confront their son about it. I don't necessarily agree, but I guess that's why I said something. Comment 2. NTA. Her daughter is 18, not 8. There comes a point in every child's life where they become adults and should interact accordingly. It's a crime that your SIL hasn't educated her child properly on public etiquette. I could see the niece saying something like that as an inside joke. My kid sometimes says things like that when she's kidding around, but never in public, and it's always clear that she's being facetious. He should be doing more is exactly the opposite of what she should have been saying. Either your niece is going to go out in the real world and get smacked down hard or she'll find a sugar daddy and become insufferable. Maybe I'm just overly judgy, but that's certainly not the kind of life I would wish on anyone. I, F40, got married to my ex-husband, James, M43, 3 years ago. He had a daughter, Annabelle, F13, from a previous marriage. For background purposes, Annabelle has next to no contact with her bio mother. She left when Annabelle was 2, and apart from the occasional birthday card, there's no contact there. I've known Annabelle since she was 9, and we had a good relationship, especially in the absence of a maternal figure in her life. I never had children of my own and never intended to, but was surprised that I was fine with being in a relationship with someone with a child. James, Annabelle, and I lived together for 4 years in what you could consider the normal nuclear family. However, my relationship with James just got more and more strained. We were constantly arguing and bickering about really pointless things, and the atmosphere in the house was sour. Annabelle could tell, and she became more withdrawn. Eventually, I told James the first was leaving because I wasn't happy in the house or the relationship. He was livid, swearing and shouting, saying that he didn't want to see me again. I left and went to live with my sister until I found somewhere of my own. This happened about 3 months ago, and I haven't had any contact with James since then, other than to collect some things from the house. I asked how Annabelle was, and he said she was fine, but didn't really expand upon that. However, last week, I received an angry call from James saying how selfish and immature I'd been by not getting Annabelle a birthday present. I knew it was her birthday but decided not to, and haven't tried to maintain a relationship with her because of the tension with James. James said how upset she was and that he couldn't believe I put relationship issues over a 13-year-old girl, who I knew didn't have a mother. I told him he was being ridiculous and that if he wanted to cut me out of his life completely, that includes his daughter. He said I was an asshole and a small gift or card would have meant the world to Annabelle, before hanging up the phone. I sent Annabelle a happy birthday text the day after her birthday as the call was late, but she hasn't responded. Comment 1. NTA I'd encourage you to do a couple of things if you are open to still being in the Annabelle's life. Text her again and ask if she'd still like a relationship with you, and if so, what did she have in mind? If you like her answer, ask if is she comfortable approaching her dad for permission to see you. If none of that works out, consider telling her that when she is a legal adult and free to make decisions without her dad's permission, you'd love to see her and spend time with her. Comment 2. ESH. You're not wrong to leave the relationship. I'm not faulting you for that at all. But Annabelle didn't do anything to you. You've been a mother figure to her for 4 years. You left 3 months ago. I understand that you haven't had contact, but look at this from her perspective. She's a child that was abandoned by her mother, had a good relationship with you, and is now suddenly abandoned again. You really don't sound like you care about her at all. You're even putting stepdaughter in quotations. I'm not saying you have to stay in her life. And I'm not even saying your ex was right to call and chew you out for not giving her a present. But you're an adult, you understand that your relationship and separation affects more than just you, right? If the only time you've even attempted to reach out to her was a happy birthday text after she was already upset and her dad called you about it, don't pretend you care about her. Just to jump right in, my sister Jasmine is 21F, and she is 3 months pregnant at the moment, but when she first found out she was pregnant, we were at my parents' house and we planned on staying for a week because there was a death in the family and we had to attend the funeral that weekend, but we also wanted to see some of our family we haven't seen in years since we left for college. When I first got to my parents' house, I was greeted by everyone, but I only wanted to see my sister because we haven't seen each other face to face in months. I called for her, and she slowly walked down the stairs, then she gave me a side hug, and I thought that was kind of weird, so I laughed and pulled her in to give her a full hug. She seemed so nervous, so I asked her if she was okay. She shook her head yes and slowly walked back upstairs. I followed her and asked her again if she was okay. She started to pull me and I followed. She took a deep breath, then took something at the waist of heat tights, and when she opened her hands, I seen a positive pregnancy test. I couldn't do anything but stand there in shock. She pinched me and told me not to tell, and I told her okay. Later that day my mom had cooked and she called all of us downstairs, but Jasmine didn't come, so I went upstairs to get her, and she was laying on the floor in her room. I called her name, then I shook her a little. She opened her eyes and said she felt dizzy, and then she felt the need to throw up and started to walk to the bathroom and passed out. Long story short, I didn't keep my promise. This ended up happening for 2 days, and I told my mother about it, and my mother first thought was she was dying or something and she started to panic. Then I told her that Jasmine was pregnant. My mom went ballistic and started to scold her, and the next day Jasmine left, and she blocked my number and all social media accounts. My brother said that it was wrong of me to tell when I knew my mom would get upset cause she didn't like Jasmine's boyfriend. Then Jasmine is still in college on top of that, but the only reason I told was because I was concerned about her. Comment 1. If you knew that your mom's reaction will like that, then definitely YTA. In general, your actions were okay if your mom would love her and do everything to help, not to scold, go ballistic and stress her, as that is the last thing that a pregnant girl needs. Now you will suffer consequences: betrayed your sister's trust, blocked on everything, probably more, of your broken promise and inability to access the situation correctly, and you deserve all of it. You need to find a way to apologize to her and hope that she is the forgiving kind, but rebuilding trust might not be possible, so. Comment 2. NTA. Look, you're going to catch heat for telling her secret, but you put your sister's health and safety above her privacy. She passed out. She needed help. You needed help to help her. Your mum sadly had the worst reaction. But I hope your sister is feeling better and hopefully she will understand in time. Comment 3. I get that you were worried about her and your mom was confused about her health, but Erta. It was not your pregnancy to announce, and judging by your mother's reaction, I get why your sister didn't want to tell her. If you wanna make things better, you should talk to your mother and stand up for your sister. Your mother needs to realize your sister is a grown-ass woman, and she needs to apologize. You're both treating your sister like a child.